Here's the greatest discovery of my life. We become what we think about. What we hold in our minds, we build in our lives. Most people never truly grasp that simple truth, and because they don't, they spend their years creating by accident what they could have designed on purpose. In this message, you'll discover why your mind is the most powerful force in your life, and how everything you experience begins first as a thought. I'll show you how to plant the ideas that create abundance, peace, and purpose, and how to stop growing the weeds of fear, doubt, and limitation. Before we continue, take a moment to subscribe and leave a quick comment, even one word. That small action helps this message reach others who need to hear it, and it tells me that these deep dives are worth creating. Because what you'll hear today isn't theory, it's law. And once you understand it, nothing about your life will ever be the same. I've often said that the mind is the last unexplored frontier. We've mapped the earth, charted the oceans, and even reached the moon. Yet most people have never learned to govern the territory within their own heads. They let fear occupy their imagination, doubt fill their vision, and then wonder why their world seems small. But when a person learns to think deliberately, to choose their thoughts as carefully as a sculptor chooses his tools, everything changes. The same power that once built failure can build success, because the mind itself never stops creating. Here's something most people completely miss. Your outer world is nothing more than a reflection of your inner world. The life you live right now, every condition, every relationship, every opportunity or obstacle, all began as a thought. And yet, most people move through life as if their thoughts were accidents, as if their minds were wandering machines instead of creative instruments. But life always follows the mind. Whatever we plant there, it grows. Whatever we hold there, it multiplies. And just like a field, the mind will return exactly what we give it, nothing more, nothing less. Now, that truth can either liberate you or it can frighten you, because once you realize your thoughts are the cause of every effect in your life, there's no one left to blame. Not your upbringing, not the economy, not luck or chance. Every result begins in thought. The body only acts out what the mind believes. And the mind, my friend, is the richest soil in existence. It doesn't care what's planted in it. Give it weeds, and it'll grow weeds. Give it corn, and it'll grow corn. It's perfectly obedient. It has no sense of humor, no judgment, no bias. It simply produces what's sown with repetition and emotion. That's why I've often said the mind is both your best friend and your worst enemy, depending entirely on what you allow to take root. You see, we are all farmers in the field of thought. Every day we're sowing seeds, ideas, beliefs, worries, dreams, fears, and every one of those seeds begins to grow. Most people plant weeds all day long and then stand in their field at night wondering why there's no harvest. They speak words of doubt, they imagine failure, they dwell on what they fear, and then they're shocked when their lives produce exactly that. But this law is perfect, it never misses. Life is cause and effect, and thought is always the cause. Let me give you an example. Picture two people standing on the same street corner, watching the same world. One sees opportunity, the other sees danger. One notices open doors, the other notices locked ones. One takes a step forward, the other stays frozen in place. Now tell me, which world is real? The answer is both. But each lives in a different one, because each has created his world through his thoughts. Their circumstances are the same, but their perception, that invisible filter through which they interpret life, determines the quality of their experience. That's why no two people live the same day, even when they share the same time and place. Your mind, right now, is shaping the conditions of your tomorrow. The person you'll be next month, next year, in 5 years, is already being built by the thoughts you hold most often today. Every repeated thought is a brushstroke on the canvas of your future. That's why there's no such thing as an idle thought. Each one is a cause in motion. Each one begins to attract its likeness, to summon its kind. Think long enough about fear, and you'll begin to see things that confirm it. Think long enough about success, and you'll begin to notice opportunities you never saw before. It's not magic, it's perception. The world hasn't changed, but your mind has tuned itself to a new frequency, and now life begins to mirror that. Let's go back to the garden analogy for a moment, because it's the clearest picture of this law. Imagine a farmer standing before his field. The soil doesn't care what seeds he plants. He can plant wheat or weeds, roses or thorns. The soil doesn't argue, doesn't discriminate, doesn't refuse. It simply grows whatever is placed within it, provided it's tended, watered, and given sunlight. The mind is the same. It doesn't care whether your thoughts are good or bad, creative or destructive, courageous or fearful. It only cares about repetition. Whatever you repeat becomes planted deeply enough to grow roots, and once those roots form, they will bear fruit in your life, whether you want them to or not. That's why it's not enough to simply think positive for a moment or two. The mind doesn't respond to passing whims, it responds to dominant thought. You can't plant a seed once, then dig it up every day to check if it's growing. It takes time, it takes patience, and it takes consistency. You must hold a thought in your mind long enough for it to take root, and you must water it with belief and emotion. The thought "I can" must become more familiar than "I can't." The image of success must become more vivid than the image of failure. Only then will the soil of your mind yield the kind of harvest you desire. Now, I know someone might say, but what about luck? What about random chance? What about the things beyond my control? And I say, yes, life will always contain the unexpected, but how you meet it depends entirely on what you've been planting. The person who's been sowing thoughts of faith will meet adversity with courage. The person who's been sowing thoughts of fear will meet it with panic. The difference isn't in the circumstance, it's in the mental preparation. You can't control the weather, but you can control what kind of seed you plant and whether you're ready when the season changes. So I'll ask you, what have you been planting lately? What thoughts occupy your mind most of the time? Because whatever you think about most is what you're building. It's what you're feeding, and it's what will ultimately take form in your life. Most people never take inventory of their thoughts. They wouldn't dream of letting strangers dump trash into their living room, yet they allow every negative opinion, every fear, every criticism to enter their minds unchecked. The disciplined person guards the gate of their mind with the same care a king guards his treasury. Because they know that their thoughts are precious, they are the currency of creation. There's one more truth you must understand about this law. The subconscious mind, that deep and silent part of you, accepts every repeated thought as truth. It doesn't question, doesn't analyze, doesn't distinguish between imagination and reality. If you tell it something often enough and with enough feeling, it believes you. And once it believes you, it begins to work day and night to make that belief real. That's why people who constantly say, "I can't," or "I never have any luck," or "things never work out for me," find those words coming true. They're simply programming their subconscious to obey. But if you begin to say, "I can," "I am capable," "opportunities are appearing for me," and you say it often enough to believe it, the same subconscious will work just as faithfully to make that come true. So remember, your thoughts are the architects of your destiny. Every great success began as an idea held long enough to become belief. Every failure began as a fear allowed to grow unchecked. The mind is always producing. The only question is, what is it producing for you? Because life doesn't discriminate between good or bad seeds. It only multiplies what you plant. And once you see that clearly, once you realize that thought is the true cause behind every effect, you begin to understand that your power lies within. The world outside doesn't have to change, only your thinking does. And when it does, everything else follows. That's the great law of thought, and it's the foundation for everything that follows. Because once you understand that life mirrors the mind, you begin to see that belief, faith, and expectation aren't just feelings, they're the forces that shape your world. And that's exactly what we'll talk about next. What I'm about to tell you is one of the most extraordinary truths I ever learned. Thought alone has no power until belief gives it life. You can think about success all day long, but if you secretly believe it's out of reach, your thought dies before it ever takes form. You can picture health, happiness, and abundance in your imagination, but if you doubt your worthiness, your mind will quietly sabotage every effort to achieve it. Belief is the bridge between the invisible and the visible. It's the vital force that turns an idea into movement, a vision into reality. Without it, the greatest thought in the world remains an empty wish. With it, even the smallest idea becomes unstoppable. Belief is the heartbeat of creation. It's what separates those who wish from those who achieve. Two people can hold the same idea in mind, one flourishes, the other fails. The difference isn't luck or intelligence, it's belief. The one who believes, truly believes, begins to act in harmony with that belief. Their words, posture, tone, and decisions align with it. Their faith in the outcome attracts opportunity because the world responds to conviction. The one who doubts, on the other hand, holds back. They hesitate, they question, they undercut their own progress with fear. And the mind, obedient as ever, responds to doubt the same way it responds to belief. It brings forth evidence to confirm what it's been told. I've seen this law play out in every corner of life. I've watched men rise from poverty to wealth, not because they suddenly found opportunity, but because they finally believed they were capable of it. I've seen people overcome illness, not because of luck or chance, but because they replaced hopelessness with faith. Faith that their bodies, like their minds, could respond to belief. Every discovery, every invention, every great work of art began in the same way, as an idea in the mind of someone who refused to doubt. The Wright brothers didn't just build a machine, they built belief that man could fly. Edison didn't simply invent the light bulb, he proved that faith in an idea can outlast 1,000 failures. They held their vision so clearly, so persistently, that reality had no choice but to rearrange itself around their conviction. Belief is not a feeling, it's a state of knowing. It's the calm assurance that what you desire already exists in potential form, and that by holding that idea with faith and persistence, you draw it into your experience. Doubt, by contrast, is faith in failure. It's belief pointed in the wrong direction. Most people spend their lives believing in what they don't want, believing in limitation, believing in scarcity, believing in struggle. And so, naturally, their lives confirm those beliefs. The mind doesn't ask, "Is this what you want?" It only says, "As you believe, so it shall be." Imagine for a moment a sculptor standing before a great block of marble. To most people, it's just a lump of stone. But the sculptor doesn't see what's in front of him, he sees what's inside of it. He already holds the finished statue in his mind before the first strike of the chisel. Every cut he makes, every flake of marble that falls away, is guided by that inner vision. He believes beyond doubt that the masterpiece is there, waiting to be revealed. Now imagine another man given the same marble but no vision, no belief. He hesitates, second guesses, strikes randomly, and soon gives up. The difference isn't in the stone, it's in the mind of the sculptor. Belief is what guides the hand, shapes the method, and gives life to the work. Without it, creation is impossible. The same principle applies to you and me. We are the sculptors of our own experience, and our beliefs are the chisels we hold in our hands. Every decision we make, every action we take, every word we speak is guided by the picture we hold in our minds of who we are and what's possible. If we believe we're limited, we'll never strike deep enough to reveal the masterpiece within us. But if we believe we're capable, worthy, and guided by a higher purpose, we'll carve with confidence, trusting that every blow brings us closer to our vision. That's why I say belief is the most powerful force on earth. It's stronger than circumstance, stronger than failure, stronger than fear. A single belief can turn weakness into strength, failure into learning, and doubt into determination. But to harness that power, we must first understand that belief is not built in a moment, it's built through repetition and action. You can't talk yourself into belief, you must live your way into it. You must act as though your desired outcome were already certain, even when you can't yet see it. Every time you do, your subconscious begins to accept that new reality. It starts to work quietly, arranging conditions, attracting resources, and guiding you toward the people and opportunities that match your conviction. That's the mystery of faith. It sees the invisible and acts as though it were visible. When you live in that state long enough, the world begins to conform. You begin to notice that doors open where walls once stood, that coincidences align in your favor, that ideas arrive at just the right time. None of it is magic, it's simply the natural unfolding of a mind that believes. Faith draws form out of formlessness, just as the sculptor draws a statue from stone. Now, belief can't be forced, but it can be chosen. It's a decision to trust in possibility rather than probability. And that decision, repeated daily, creates the momentum that turns small steps into great progress. Each time you choose belief over doubt, you strengthen a new pattern in your mind. Each time you visualize success instead of failure, you deepen that groove. And soon, belief becomes second nature. You no longer have to convince yourself, you simply know. But there's a warning hidden in this law. Just as belief builds, disbelief destroys. A single seed of doubt, watered daily by fear and worry, can choke out the healthiest idea. That's why you must guard your mind as carefully as you guard your body. Refuse to dwell on thoughts that weaken your faith. Refuse to give power to voices that say, you can't. Because they're wrong, you can. Every great life begins with that decision to believe. So whatever your dream is, whatever goal, purpose, or vision fills your heart, begin to see it as already real. Walk, talk, and act as though it were impossible to fail. Let belief be your sculptor's hand. Keep chiseling, even when progress seems invisible, because if your belief remains strong, the form will emerge. It must. That's law. The universe always aligns itself with the strongest conviction. And that's why belief is more than just positive thinking, it's the energy of creation itself. Once you truly understand that, you'll never again underestimate the power of what you hold in your mind. Because belief turns thought into form, and that's the foundation of every success story the world has ever known. Now that we've seen how belief gives life to thought, we come to the next great discipline, the habit that sustains belief and channels it into consistent direction. Because it's not enough to think once, or even to believe once. You must learn to think deliberately, every day, with intention and purpose. And that's exactly what we'll explore next. Here's something most people never do. They never stop to think deliberately. They react, they respond, they rush from task to task, but they never truly think. And that's why so few ever reach the full measure of their potential. The average person believes thinking happens automatically, like breathing or blinking, but real thinking, deep, conscious, directed thought, is the rarest and most powerful form of human effort. It's the difference between drifting through life and steering it, between existing by chance and living by design. Every person who has ever achieved anything worthwhile, whether in science, business, art, or personal happiness, has done so because they learned to control the direction of their mind. They made thinking a daily habit, a deliberate act of creation, not a reaction to the world around them. When I say deliberate thinking, I mean sitting quietly with yourself, without distraction, and deciding what you want your mind to build. I mean choosing your thoughts instead of letting circumstances choose them for you. Most people never pause long enough to do that. They wake up, turn on the noise of the world, and let it fill their minds. They read headlines written by someone else, repeat conversations borrowed from others, and by nightfall, their heads are crowded with thoughts that aren't even theirs. And then they wonder why life feels confusing and directionless. But how can a ship reach its port if the captain never plots a course? How can a house be built if no one ever draws the blueprint? The mind is the same. Without deliberate thinking, you're building your life without a plan, reacting to every gust of wind, every wave of emotion, every fleeting desire. Imagine an architect about to design a great cathedral. He wouldn't simply start stacking stones, hoping they form something beautiful. He would first sit in silence with a pencil and paper. He'd imagine the shape, the symmetry, the light streaming through the windows. He'd consider every detail before the first stone is ever laid. That vision, that careful design, is what makes the building possible. Your mind works the same way. You are the architect of your future, and your thoughts are the plans. If you don't draw them with intention, you'll build something by accident. And most lives, sadly, are built by accident, an unplanned collection of habits, emotions, and half-formed ideas. But the person who sits down each day, even for a few minutes, to think about what they want, to visualize their direction, to clarify their purpose, that person begins to live as a creator, not a passenger. Deliberate thinking begins with questions, not small, surface questions, but deep, honest ones. What do I truly want? Why do I want it? What kind of person must I become to deserve it? What can I do today that moves me closer to it? Most people never ask these questions because they're afraid of the answers. Real thinking requires courage because it demands responsibility. The moment you define what you want, you can no longer hide behind excuses. You can't blame circumstance or fate or luck. You know the direction, and that means you must begin walking. But once you do, once you accept that level of personal responsibility, life begins to change. You stop feeling like a victim of the world and start feeling like its partner. One of the simplest yet most powerful practices you can develop is to set aside 15 minutes each morning before the day begins to think deliberately. Sit quietly with a notebook and ask yourself, what do I want this day to mean? What is my purpose today? How can I make it a step toward the life I want? Don't rush. Don't multitask. Just think. At first, your mind will resist. It will wander to trivial things, to errands and distractions. But stay with it. The mind, like a muscle, grows stronger through use. And just as the body gains shape through discipline, the mind gains power through focused thought. Over time, you'll notice that ideas begin to flow with greater ease. Solutions appear where there were once problems. Your thinking becomes ordered, creative, calm. Now, I know what some people will say, I don't have time to sit and think. But that's not true. Everyone has time, it's simply a matter of priority. We waste hours reacting to things that don't matter, scrolling through endless distractions, worrying about events we can't control. 15 minutes of clear thought will give you more power than 15 hours of scattered activity, because thinking is the root of every action. It's the foundation of every success. When you take time to think, you're sharpening the axe before cutting the tree. The man who rushes to chop without sharpening will work harder and achieve less. The man who sharpens first, who thinks first, works efficiently and achieves much more. There's something miraculous that happens when you begin to think deliberately. You start to realize that you have more control than you ever imagined. You begin to see the connection between your thoughts and your circumstances. Problems that once seemed enormous shrink under the light of reason. Fears that once dominated you lose their power when examined clearly, because clarity dissolves fear, confusion feeds it. And clarity only comes through deliberate thinking. The mind that learns to think clearly becomes unshakable, because it understands that every challenge is simply a question to be solved, not a fate to be feared. Most people think they need to figure out their purpose, as though it were hiding somewhere far away. But purpose is not found, it's created. It's born in the silence of deliberate thought. The moment you begin to ask, what do I want to contribute to life, instead of, what can I get from it? That's when your purpose begins to form. It's not a lightning bolt, it's a slow dawn. Each morning of reflection adds a little more light, until one day you can see the horizon clearly. That's the reward of consistent, deliberate thinking. It turns confusion into clarity, frustration into focus, and doubt into direction. And something else happens too. Your emotions begin to follow your direction. You stop being pushed around by moods. Instead, your emotions start working for you, not against you. You feel better because you're moving forward with purpose. The inner conflict fades because your thoughts, beliefs, and actions are finally in harmony. That harmony is what gives a person peace. It's what makes life feel meaningful. So ask yourself, what occupies your mind when you're alone? Are you letting random worries and distractions fill the space that could be used for creation? Or are you using your mind deliberately, shaping each day like an artist shapes his work? Because make no mistake, your thoughts are shaping something, whether you intend them to or not. The question is, are they shaping what you want or what you fear? That's why deliberate thinking is the highest discipline. It's how you take back the creative power that most people give away. The world is filled with noise, but the person who learns to be still, to think clearly and deeply, becomes powerful beyond measure. Because that person stops reacting and starts creating. And that's the turning point when you stop living by accident and begin to live by design. And once you master that habit, once your thoughts are no longer accidental but purposeful, you begin to notice something extraordinary. You start to attract into your life the very things that match your dominant thoughts. Ideas, people, circumstances, opportunities, they all begin to align with your mental pattern. It's as though life itself starts to respond to your direction. And that brings us to the next great principle of the mind, the law of attraction. Because whatever you hold in your thoughts, you draw toward you. Here's a truth so simple that most overlook it entirely. Your life is always moving in the direction of your dominant thoughts. Whatever you hold in mind, you attract in kind. Every day, every hour, every moment, you are broadcasting thoughts like invisible signals into the world, and the world, perfectly obedient, echoes them back to you as circumstances, people, and experiences. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. The frequency of your habitual thinking determines the frequency of the results you receive. And whether you're aware of it or not, the law of attraction is always working, quietly, faithfully, like gravity, unseen, unfelt, but inescapable. Most people believe they are victims of luck, of chance, of fate, but they are simply unaware of the thoughts they entertain most often. They dwell on worry, and life obliges them with things to worry about. They focus on scarcity, and scarcity multiplies around them. They complain about problems, and problems answer back with interest. But those who have learned to control their inner dialogue, to hold before their minds the picture of success, health, harmony, and abundance, those are the people who seem to have luck that never runs out. Their good fortune is no accident. It's the outer reflection of an inner law. Think of your mind as a radio transmitter. It's always sending out a signal, a vibration based on your thoughts and feelings. And just like a radio, you only receive the station you're tuned to. If you're tuned to the frequency of frustration, that's all you'll hear. Every event will sound like static and noise. But tune yourself to gratitude, to expectancy, to calm determination, and you'll begin to receive signals from that wavelength, opportunities, insights, people, ideas, all resonating in harmony with your dominant vibration. The law of attraction doesn't judge or decide what's good or bad for you, it simply matches. You get back what you send out. The universe mirrors the tone of your inner conversation. Now, this doesn't mean that you can sit idly by and wish for things to happen. The law of attraction is not a substitute for effort, it's a multiplier of direction. If your mind and your actions move in harmony, your progress accelerates in ways that seem miraculous. But if your thoughts and your actions are in conflict, you divide your power. It's like rowing a boat with one oar in the water, you spin in circles. To move forward, your thoughts, beliefs, and actions must pull together. That's why clarity is essential. You must know what you want, believe it's possible, and act as though it's already on its way. The key, then, is not to ask whether the law of attraction is real, it's to ask whether you're using it consciously or unconsciously, because you're using it either way. Every time you replay a fearful story in your mind, you're practicing attraction. Every time you imagine the worst outcome, you're rehearsing a result that might have never existed. The mind doesn't distinguish between imagination and reality, it simply reacts. It releases emotion, changes your state, and influences your actions, and those actions in turn create the very circumstances that prove your original thought correct. That's why negative thinking feels so convincing, it's self-fulfilling. But so is positive thinking, so is faith, so is gratitude. The moment you shift your attention from what's missing to what's growing, from what's wrong to what's possible, you alter the entire pattern of your vibration, and life begins to respond differently. There's a beautiful simplicity to this law. It asks nothing complicated of you, only awareness. Awareness of what you dwell on, what you talk about, what you expect. Because whatever occupies your mind most consistently, you're moving toward it. Spend your days thinking about lack, and you'll walk straight into it. Spend them thinking about progress, and progress will find you. It's not magic, it's cause and effect. You become magnetized to the things that match your mental state. Let me give you a picture of this. Imagine two men standing side by side in a garden. One plants seeds of roses, the other seeds of weeds. The sun shines on both, the rain falls equally, and the soil offers the same nourishment. But only one harvests beauty. the other, chaos. The conditions were equal, only the seeds were different. The same is true of thought. The conditions of life are neutral. It's what you plant in the soil of your mind that determines your harvest. If you plant resentment, you can't reap peace. If you plant doubt, you can't expect faith. And if you plant gratitude, purpose, and discipline, your life will grow in abundance. Now, someone might say, but I can't control every thought. And that's true. You don't need to. You only need to control what you dwell upon. Thoughts are like birds flying overhead. You can't stop them from passing, but you can stop them from nesting in your hair. Let the negative ones drift by. Don't fight them, don't feed them. Replace them gently with the thought of what you do want, not what you fear. It's a practice, one that grows easier each day. Because the more you focus on what you want, the stronger that mental habit becomes, until it's no longer effort but instinct. Gratitude is the master frequency of the mind. When you live in gratitude, you attract more to be grateful for. When you speak with appreciation, life multiplies your blessings. Gratitude isn't a reaction, it's a signal. It tells the universe, I am tuned to abundance. And abundance responds in kind. That's why the happiest people aren't always the richest or the most successful, they are the most grateful. Their gratitude keeps their minds tuned to the station of possibility. They see opportunities others overlook because their eyes aren't clouded by lack. And so, my friend, remember this simple truth. Whatever you dwell upon, you draw toward you. If you think in fear, you'll find more reasons to fear. If you think in faith, you'll discover doors opening where there were once only walls. If you think in lack, your world will shrink. If you think in abundance, your world will expand. Your outer world will always match the frequency of your inner one. But here's the beautiful part. Once you realize this, you can change everything. You can begin, right now, to turn your thoughts toward what you desire, not what you dread. You can begin to visualize, to affirm, to give thanks as if it were already true. And if you hold that vibration long enough, you'll feel it begin to work. Life will respond, quietly at first, then more boldly, until the reality you once imagined becomes the world you inhabit. That's the power of attention. It's the magnet of creation. And when you combine that with clear thought, strong belief, and deliberate action, you become unstoppable. Because thought attracts the idea, belief activates it, and action brings it into being. That's the complete circuit of creation. And that leads us naturally to the next and final step in this process, the law of action. Because thinking, believing, and attracting are only the beginning. The real proof of faith, the final transformation of thought into tangible form, comes when you move. Because thought made visible is called action, and it's through action that every dream takes shape in the real world. Here is where the invisible becomes visible, where all the thinking, believing, and imagining you've done begins to take on form. Action is the bridge between thought and reality. It's the moment where faith steps out of the mind and walks into the world. Without it, even the greatest idea remains nothing more than a beautiful dream, floating in potential but never finding expression. Thought is the seed, belief is the soil, but action is the sunlight and the rain that make growth possible. Without it, the seed rots. You can't think your way to success without acting on your thoughts, just as you can't wish a tree into existence without planting it and tending to its growth. The mind's power is magnificent, but it was never meant to replace effort, it was meant to direct it. Every person who has ever achieved greatness understood this. They didn't just sit in quiet rooms imagining success, they took the first step, and then the next, and the next after that. They understood that the law of cause and effect demands motion, it rewards movement. It meets you halfway, but only after you've begun to move. And the first step, though small, carries more power than all the plans in the world because it changes your state. It transforms potential energy into kinetic energy. Once you move, momentum begins to build, and life itself seems to move with you. Suddenly, ideas appear at the right moment, people cross your path with perfect timing, and opportunities emerge as though by magic. But there's no magic in it, only law. The law of action says that the universe responds to initiative. Life meets you at the level of your willingness to act. If you wait for perfect timing, you'll wait forever. If you wait to feel ready, you'll never begin. Most people sit at the edge of their dreams, waiting for certainty, when the truth is that certainty only comes after movement. It's the act of beginning that creates confidence. It's the act of doing that strengthens belief. And it's through repeated action that the invisible pattern of your thought solidifies into reality. The man who waits for inspiration to strike before he works may wait his entire life. The one who works consistently, even through doubt, finds that inspiration begins to follow him everywhere he goes. Let me tell you something I've seen in every field, from business to art to personal growth. People who act, even imperfectly, accomplish more than those who wait for perfect conditions. The difference between success and failure rarely lies in intelligence, luck, or resources. It lies in motion. Success belongs to the doers. The world rewards the person who dares to step forward when others hesitate. You've likely heard the story of Edison, who failed thousands of times before inventing the light bulb. He didn't interpret those attempts as defeat. He saw them as progress. Every action, every experiment, was a step forward, refining the vision, bringing it closer to reality. He understood that thought alone couldn't light the world. It was the steady hand, the repeated effort, that brought light into being. And so it is with every human dream. Thought must be expressed in action. You can imagine health, but you must also eat well, move your body, and rest your mind. You can picture wealth, but you must also create, serve, learn, and exchange value. You can visualize peace, but you must also act with understanding, with forgiveness, with discipline. The law of action translates your inner world into outer experience. Every act, no matter how small, is a signal to the universe I am serious about my intention. And once that signal is sent, the response begins. But here's the truth. Most people miss action. Doesn't need to be dramatic. It doesn't need to be heroic. It only needs to be consistent. 1,000 small steps in one direction will take you further than one grand leap that's never repeated. Each action, each day, compounds upon the last. Like a farmer who plants and tends to his field, you must be willing to show up every morning, even when the sky is gray and the harvest seems far away. You must trust that the process is working beneath the surface, even when you can't yet see it. The farmer doesn't dig up his seeds to check their progress. He waters, he waits, he continues. And in due season, the results appear. There's a timeless parable I've always loved of a man who sits before a cold stove on a winter's night and says, "Give me heat, and then I'll add the wood." But of course, the stove remains cold, because he's reversed the order of nature. He wants the effect before the cause. And yet, that's how most people approach life, waiting for results before taking action, waiting for proof before having faith. But life doesn't work that way. The wood must go in first. The effort must come before the reward. You must act, even when the results aren't yet visible, because the law of cause and effect is always working, even in silence. Every act you take sends ripples into the world, ripples that return to you in ways you can't always predict. A kind word creates goodwill that might return years later as opportunity. A disciplined habit today might open a door tomorrow that you never knew existed. That's why no sincere effort is ever wasted. You might not see the reward immediately, but the law is absolute. What you sow, you shall reap. Every act, every moment of discipline, every step toward your goal plants a seed. Keep planting, keep tending. Because the harvest comes only to those who stay the course. Now, I know it's easy to say these things and harder to live them. We all have days when the effort feels heavy, when doubt whispers that it's not working, when we're tempted to stop. But those are the moments that separate the dreamers from the achievers. Anyone can act when they feel inspired. It's the person who acts when they don't who moves mountains. Discipline is doing what needs to be done long after the feeling has passed. And the law of action rewards that discipline with results that others call luck. When you begin to act in harmony with your thoughts and beliefs, something remarkable happens. Your self-image begins to change. You start to see yourself as a person who follows through, who keeps promises, who creates momentum. And that self-image becomes the foundation for greater achievements. You no longer need to push yourself so hard because action becomes natural. It's simply who you are. That's when the law of action moves from effort to flow, when doing the right thing feels as automatic as breathing. So don't wait for perfect timing. Don't wait for conditions to be ideal. Begin now, with what you have, where you are. Start the project, make the call, write the page, take the walk. Whatever your goal may be, take one step toward it today, because once you do, life will begin to move with you. The path will reveal itself, not all at once, but step by step, in perfect rhythm with your effort. You don't need to see the whole road, only the next step. And as you keep taking those steps, you'll discover something profound, that success was never about luck or genius or timing. It was about obedience to law. The law of thought gave you vision, the law of belief gave you faith, the law of attraction drew the resources, and the law of action made it real. That's the complete cycle of creation, the process by which every dream becomes tangible. And now, as we move to the closing of this lesson, remember this simple truth. The world will always mirror what you hold in your mind and express through your action. You are both the dreamer and the doer, the thinker and the builder, the cause and the effect. What you think, you become. What you act upon, you create. And once you understand that, you hold in your hands the greatest power given to man, the power to shape your own destiny. And so we come to the end, the point where all of these ideas, all of these principles, all of these quiet truths begin to converge into one single living reality. You become what you think about. Everything you've heard, every law we've spoken of, thought, belief, deliberate intention, attraction, action, they all move in harmony around that one eternal law. It's not philosophy, not poetry, not imagination. It is law fixed, predictable, absolute. Every man and woman on this earth lives by it, whether they realize it or not. Every joy, every sorrow, every triumph, every failure is the harvest of that inner field called the mind. You and I are farmers, constantly planting seeds, and the world we live in today is the exact result of the seeds we've sown in thought, in word, in action. That's why the wisest among us never blame the weather of circumstance. They study their planting instead. Every life is a mirror reflecting its own inner state. A peaceful mind creates a peaceful home. A disciplined mind creates a disciplined destiny. A grateful mind attracts more to be grateful for. But a fearful mind, a doubtful mind, a mind obsessed with limitation, that mind builds walls where there could have been bridges. And so, the moment a person realizes that their world is not happening to them but through them, that moment marks the birth of freedom. From then on, they stop pleading with life and start shaping it. They stop wishing and start working. They stop waiting for luck and start living by law. Think about this. No one ever stumbled into greatness by accident. No one ever built a monument of achievement by chance. Every person who has risen to purpose did so through the quiet discipline of the mind, through choosing their thoughts, directing them, and acting upon them daily. There's nothing mystical about it. It's practical, exact, and accessible to everyone. The same law that governs the planets governs your mind. The same force that turns an acorn into a tree can turn a single idea into a world-changing enterprise if only it's fed with faith and action. Now, if there's one truth I hope you'll carry from this message, it's this. You already hold the steering wheel of your own life. It's been in your hands since the day you were born. Every decision, every thought, every word has been gently guiding you, shaping you, moving you forward or backward. Some people spend their lives asleep at that wheel, wondering why their journey feels random. Others wake up and realize they can change course at any moment. And that awakening, that instant of awareness, changes everything. Because once you see that your outer life is only the shadow of your inner world, you can change the world around you by changing the world within you. So here's the challenge I leave you with, one that could change the entire course of your life if you take it seriously. For the next 30 days, hold one definite goal in your mind. Write it clearly on a small card, something simple, positive, and specific. Carry it with you wherever you go. Read it every morning when you wake, and every night before you sleep. Let it saturate your thoughts, your speech, your actions. Think about it as though it were already yours, and act each day as if success were inevitable. You'll begin to notice small shifts at first, a new idea, a helpful person, a coincidence that feels too precise to be random. Don't dismiss them. They're signs that your thoughts are beginning to align with reality, that the invisible machinery of cause and effect has started to move in your favor. And if at times you feel discouraged, if the progress seems slow or the goals still distant, remember that all great creation begins unseen. The seed must spend weeks in darkness before it breaks the soil. The bamboo tree grows underground for years before it shoots skyward in a single season. The same is true of your dream. Give it time, give it faith, give it your daily effort. The law of thought and action never fails. It only requires patience and persistence. And above all, remember this: life will give you whatever you demand of it, not what you wish, but what you expect, what you believe, what you work for. If you demand little, life will deliver accordingly. But if you dare to expect greatness, if you discipline your mind to think in harmony with success, and if you act in accordance with that belief, then life will meet you on that higher plane and unfold its treasures before you. You see, success isn't mysterious at all. It's simply the progressive realization of a worthy ideal, an ideal that begins in thought, is nurtured through belief, expanded through deliberate attention, magnetized by gratitude, and made visible through steady action. That's the process by which every dream becomes reality. It's the same process by which you'll shape your own destiny from this day forward. So as you leave this message, take a moment of stillness. Close your eyes and think of the person you want to become, the life you wish to live. Picture it clearly. Feel it deeply. And then, with quiet confidence, remind yourself, I am the creator of my life. My thoughts shape my world. I will think only on the things I desire, and I will act in harmony with that vision every single day. Because the truth, the great truth, is this: you already possess the power. You've always had it. It's been there, waiting, ready, quietly humming within your mind. And the moment you choose to use it with purpose, the moment you decide to master your thoughts and direct them toward your highest ideals, that's the moment your entire life begins to change. And when you're ready to go even deeper into this understanding, when you want to know why this law works so perfectly and how it's been guiding you all along, I invite you to listen to The Strangest Secret. It's the foundation behind everything I've shared with you here. It's the key that turns understanding into mastery, thought into creation, and potential into reality. Because in the end, every success, every achievement, every dream fulfilled begins the same way, with a single thought. Guard that thought, nurture it, act upon it. And soon, you'll look back and realize something extraordinary. The life you once imagined is the life you're now living. You become what you think about, and from this moment forward, you know exactly how.